I had struggled really throughout my life, and I'd took for granted what I'd been through and what I'd had to cope with, that it was nothing difficult about it. But looking back now, I think, it was quite hard. But also, as regards my parents, so I learned to forgive them. Not that they were bad parents, because I think everyone tries their best, and you have to remember that your parents are people. And I don't think you realise that until you're an adult. So although I didn't have the childhood that I would have wanted, I realised as I got older, and through writing my poems actually, it made me realise that they were good people and that they taught me something, and they showed love the way they could show it. And until you do that, and you don't carry on, you don't blame anybody for the way you are, I think until you do that, you can't really heal properly. Because if you're blaming somebody else, that's an excuse to stay where you are, to stay stuck. If you haven't got self-esteem, don't believe in yourself, whatever it is that you're struggling with. So I think until you can actually turn around and say, do you know what, they did the best they could, and they did this and they did that for me. And I do love my parents. They're not here anymore, but and I think to do that it's very free, and you have to do that. It's all very easy just to go through life and you're carrying baggage with you, things that perhaps have happened in the past, and you don't always deal with that. You don't always talk to people about it, but it's always there. So if things have happened to you that you haven't dealt with, it's always there and you have to bring it out. So I find the only way I can do that is by writing. I've always written a diary since I was 14, and that helps. But you tend, I don't know, in a diary I tend not to put down all my thoughts. It's more what's happened in the day. And then I just started writing poems, which really came from when we went to Madeira on holiday, and it's such a beautiful place I just started writing poems about how pretty it was. And then I didn't really write anything until I got back home. I'd been home a couple of months, and then I started writing other things. Just things that came from the past. Some of it was a bit dark and a bit deep. But I found I felt really good after I'd written them. And it was offloading. And I couldn't wait to read it back again. And then I just carried on writing other poems. And I realised that there was a theme to it, which was there was quite a lot that had happened throughout my life. So it kind of summed up all my life from when I was a teenager, but picking out all the important things that had happened to me. I didn't really intend to get it published. If I'm honest, I think my husband gave me the confidence to do it. He really did, for me to believe in myself, because he was the one that I would read the poems to. After I'd written one, I'd get all excited and say, just listen to this. And he'd listen to it, and he'd always, in fact, sometimes he was quite emotional. He said, they are so good. And he said, you should get them published. So I'd say it was my husband, actually, that gave me the confidence to get them published. But I had to do it quite quick and not think about what was in the book and just get it published, because it is quite personal. And for me, anyway, I don't know if it applies to everybody, but I can't think about other people reading what I'm writing. Otherwise, you find yourself changing it. You find yourself thinking, oh, someone's going to be reading that, maybe I shouldn't put that. And that's no good. You've just got to write what you want to write. And the feedback I got off people was that it made them cry. And I think that's what I was doing, was crying inside, but I needed to get that out on paper. So other people are almost doing the crying for my poems that I haven't done over the years. Because I don't think I've cried enough, really. And I think I've always been strong. And a lot of people are like that, though, not just me. I think a lot of people don't cry enough, and they just deal with stuff. And I think people generally think they have to be strong. I know there's a lot at the minute about mental health, and I do think that a lot of people are carrying around a lot of stuff, and everybody has to deal with it. And if they can't talk to other people, or they don't want to talk to other people, then to get it down, to get it out, it is very, very cathartic, which is the big thing that I found. And I just find that writing for me is a release. It's the way I express myself. And there's things that you don't even realise are important necessarily from the past until you find yourself writing, and then you think, crikey, that's still there. And also it helps other people as well. a lot of people have said they can relate to it. In fact, most people have said they can relate to it, that it does make them cry, laugh as well, and that they feel good because they can relate to that, which makes me feel that actually everyone's the same. We are all the same, and it makes you feel accepted as well, which is quite important for me to feel accepted, just for me. So yeah, I found that. I find it works for me to do that. It's given me more confidence in myself, and to carry on doing more writing as well, because I honestly didn't realise it would get the sort of feedback that it's received. So it's made me feel that what I've got to say, people want to hear about. That's been important to me, because coming from a background where you feel as though what you've got to say isn't important, to suddenly realise that actually people out there do want to hear what I've got to say, and that I can produce something that will make people think, read and think this is really good. So my favourite poem is the one about my dad, that I wrote as he was dying, and after he passed away. I like that poem because it's got a nice ending. So I've turned a sad situation into quite a happy one, as happy as it can be, at the end, because my dad was happy at the end. So for me, that's my favourite. I still feel like a young me running through all the poems. So when I'm writing my poems, I sort of think of myself as being a young teenager, and that's how I feel throughout them. So it just feels like me, just the same me, throughout. I'm not aware of the age that I'm getting older on them. I just feel the same inside. But it is from a younger perspective, most of them, that I feel I'm writing them. It's difficult for me to imagine myself having any other upbringing to what I've had, and to be honest, I think it's only with hindsight that you can learn things. So I suppose if I could go back in hindsight, I would probably tell myself that I was a good person, I was capable of doing anything I wanted to do, and that everything wasn't always my fault, and that if I wanted to do something I could do it, and that I'm as good as anybody else, and yeah, just to believe in myself. I think that would be the big thing. But again, it's all with hindsight, isn't it? And I don't think until you're an adult, until you can rationalise it and then look back and realise it, because as a child you just accept what's there. So with hindsight, you'd probably go back and not make the same mistakes, but then again, that's who you are, isn't it? That makes who you are today. So I do find that quite difficult. So I think everybody's got a book in them. I've always said that. I think everyone's got a book in them. Even if they're not brilliant writers, you can always get somebody to write it for you if you know what you want to say. But even to keep a diary, I think you just need to get things on paper, like brainstorming, and then have a look at what you've got, and then make it into something. I don't think you necessarily need any training. If you like English, or you're quite good at English, it helps. But I don't think you necessarily have to be trained. So I started off years ago doing a writer's course, but because my children were so young, I didn't really have time to finish it, and I didn't find it helped me. I didn't think feel like I needed that. So I would say that you don't necessarily need training in it, because I think it has to come from the heart, and I think if it comes from the heart, then what you write will be good. I have to have a time of the day that I can write that suits me and that I can think better. So I've tried writing, I've tried having a timetable, I've tried just writing when I've got time, and I realise I write better in the morning. So I always make sure, and I always wake up early anyway, so I'm not very good at night in the evening, but I'm an early riser. So I get up early and I make sure that I get an hour, at least an hour, every morning. If I'm at work, it's an hour. If it's the weekend, I might get an hour and a half. So I work on an hour every morning, and that works for me. If I try and write in the evening, I can't function in the same way. But what I do is I copy up. So in the evening, I'll go through it and I'll alter it or copy it up. But the actual thinking of it comes best to me in the morning. and I have to, quite often I'll have a thought. Sometimes during the day I can have a thought. I need to have paper and pen handy, because sometimes I'll just come up with some thought and I'll have to just write 2 words down to remind me for later. And it's not always convenient, you can't always just go and grab a pen, depends where you are. So really, most writers are advised to carry a pen and a piece of paper with them, and I try to do that. And I've got notes all around the house that I've just scribbled on some. I've even woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I've been half asleep and I've had this idea, and I've had to just literally write 3 words on a bit of paper. So the next morning I get up and I see them and I remember what it was and I go and write. I have started writing another book, and it's I thought about whether to do an autobiography or whether to write a story, but I realised that I always read autobiographies and biographies, and I'm not really much for made-up stories. So before my poem book was published, I did start writing a novel, and I couldn't really get into it. But then, after speaking to people in the family, they helped me to realise that actually an autobiography is what I would prefer to do, and that is again quite cathartic, because there's so much that's happened in my life that I've just started writing, and it's starting to take form now. But I'm also writing poems again as well. So look out for a poem book, more poetry, and an autobiography. Everybody can benefit from getting things on paper. You can express yourself in lots of other ways. You can talk to people, but I still think having seen it on paper, you can say something and then it's gone. If you write it on paper, sometimes you don't even realise what that looks like. So you think something and you write it, and you look back at it, and it actually tells you how you're feeling. As crazy as that sounds, seeing it on paper, even if you write it on paper, you rip it up, just get it out, because writing is the best way, in my opinion, to get your thoughts out and get them down. When you've got everything down, you could find there's a book in there for you to write. Everybody has a story to tell. They might think that nobody wants to hear it, but people do want to hear it, because we've all lived different lives. And if you do read about somebody that's had a similar past to you or experiences, it makes you feel better, because you can think you're on your own and there's nobody else out there that would understand. But I think to write is to help yourself and others. So I'm just going to read this poem called Starting Over, and the reason I've picked this poem is because I feel this sums up what I'm trying to say, how you can start with low self-esteem, but as you grow up you look back and you can rationalise things, and that you can start again. So that you're not, just because you have low self-esteem when you're younger doesn't mean that's your fate for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter how old you are, you can always turn it around, because you're not the person necessarily you were when you were younger, because you can take your fate into your hands and basically be who you want to be. So this is the poem I feel sums up what I'm trying to say. It's called Starting Over. This lonely place, low self-esteem, to feel equal would be a dream. To give a child a sense of worth, a parent's job right from their birth. To feel you are a waste of space and think you have an ugly face. That everyone is better than you, to have no belief in what you do. To feel that you are all alone. What's wrong with you, my dad would groan. Negative comments, they will stick. Sue is pretty, but she is thick. I never felt I fitted in, and day by day I couldn't win. I always thought I'd never be acceptable just being me. If only I'd felt good enough to just get through the daily stuff. It weighs you down, it rules your life, just adding to your woes and strife. A small child learns what he is told by the time he is 5 years old. When you are angry, choose each word. What's wrong with you is what I heard. No smiling face, no hugs from mum. Please talk to me, don't look so glum. You think you have done something wrong when she ignores you all day long. You can work on your self-belief and feel the ripples of relief. Retune your mind and start anew. A brand new start, a brand new you. So for me, that sums up what my book is really saying, is that, you know, we all have our baggage, but if you can just get it all out, and you can choose your future life. And they can find it on Waterstones, WH Smith and Amazon. They're the main places that you can get my book. And if you do buy it, I hope you enjoy it and that you get something from it, because I do believe that there's something in it for everyone. Now, who you were as a child isn't who you were now. And you can look at that and question it and become who you want to be and what you want to be.